And welcome back everyone, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, the hardest career series. Today's episode we're going to be test flying something we've called the experimental Xvtol Quad. So exactly as it suggests, it is a quadcopter. This is the first version. So we'll see how it flies first of all. So head into the aircraft hangar and take a look at it first, and we shall head out to the runway and begin the test flight. Okay, so here we are. This is the Xvtol Quad. So basically what it is, it's 4 propeller engines vertically mounted. And we've got one of the new cockpits which we haven't seen before. And it's FW190 or the Focke-Wulf 190 cockpit. Got a number of these actually. That's the first one we unlocked, F1W90. But there's this one here, which is the Blackout cockpit. Okay, so we have, this is a Firespitter 1EN nose mounted engine. Tweak scale slightly just so it filled the gap, not for power. So it would have still had well over 1-to-1 on TWR. We have fuel for about 20 minutes at full throttle, but as we've already seen, sometimes this can get it quite inaccurate. Got the skids on the bottom, and the tanks themselves, these are, well, they should be empty. There we go. We only have fuel in these. So the tanks are actually oblong multi-tank, as you can see, FS10MT or OMT. Again, Firespitter parts. And this tank and this tank are the only 2 tanks which have anything in there as far as fuel's concerned. We've got the amber, sorry, the red warning lights, not amber. Got the EM engine mount. They don't gimbal. It's purely on reaction wheels, which we have 2. One here. Don't think I'll let me highlight them, and one at the front, and the air intake as well to feed the engines. Now altitude might have a problem, but we'll test it anyway. We might have a problem with just having one small air intake, so I might need to put a larger one on, maybe even 2, just to keep these engines, because they are quite greedy on air. Indicator is 93.75, liquid fuel is 6.25%. Okay, well, these are already ready, so we'll head out to the runway and we shall test fly it. Okay, so at the runway, so as I said, this is the first version. Well, if this goes well, we could probably make a larger version of it, maybe even have it carrying passengers and maybe cargo. But right now, we have to get to grips with the prototype itself. Okay. As you can see, we're well below halfway when it comes to fuel as well. Look inside the cockpit. F190. Not too bad. Okay, let's get going. SS is on. See exactly how much thrust we need, throttle settings we need to get off the ground. Okay, not too bad. It's quite nice and stable. Yeah, we are wandering over though, as you can see. We're not exactly flying the direction we're actually pointing in, which is pretty normal for most real world aircraft anyway. Okay, so much air we're getting through this. Yeah, 0.3. Obviously, the faster forward we're going, you should really be picking up more air, but obviously that's just measuring the intake itself as far as the atmosphere is concerned, its capacity. About the engine. Obviously, helicopters and any of the vertical lift aircraft, at least in VTOL mode, can't really maintain the high altitude anyway, so. We don't have anything that gives us translational lift either. Okay, it's not too bad. Okay, we'll head out to sea. We'll test the altitude, see what we get it up to. Okay, so we are just past 10 kilometres on the altitude test. 50% throttle, and it seems to be climbing pretty well. And the reason why I'm at 50% is because if I put full throttle on, it starts to oscillate, tries to tip itself over. So obviously the reaction wheels are slightly underpowered for this size aircraft. That's not too much of a big deal. So it seems to be flying very nicely, very stable. The altitude is looking pretty good as well. For a propeller aircraft, I wasn't expecting to be able to actually achieve this. I can tell we are starting to come down in lift though. But it's still pretty impressive for a propeller aircraft. Especially considering we've got no translational lift, as I said, near the runway. We've got no winglets or anything like that to cause lift while moving forward, sideways or backwards, so... We're fast approaching, I'll say we're not going up to 12 kilometres. So we have got some different engines which are dedicated lift fans. They're very large though, so for a larger version this is probably perfect. But obviously I've tried attaching the engine nacelle so they would pivot with servos, attaching them to the main tank here. But for some reason, whenever you go above a few meters a second, whether it's vertical or horizontal, the servos tend to jelly and your engine goes off in one direction and your aircraft, well, crashes basically. It's very strange. That's even with the servos locked. So there's no real strength in them. Now I have made something similar to this with pivotable engine nacelles. That was with Magic Smoke Industries Infernal Robotics, not the actual breaking ground servos. So I shall have to wait. Whoa. Okay, right. There we go. So 12.3 kilometres before I lose altitude, atmosphere. Not bad. 12.3 kilometres in altitude. The reason why we stopped going up is because we ran out of air. Okay, hopefully we get some atmosphere. There we go. Okay, we'll head back down to a more manageable altitude, about 500-600 metres, and we'll head over to the island airfield and test this on manoeuvring next. We should have enough fuel. Even if we haven't, we can always land and refuel at the island airfield. There's still a tank there. Okay, so we'll head back down to a normal altitude. Got 12.3, just under 12.4 kilometres, which is pretty impressive for propeller engine aircraft, with no translational lift either. Okay, so coming up on the island. So low altitude and low throttle, it's a lot easier to handle. It's not really aerodynamically capable of high speed. It's not this particular version. But we shall definitely be working on the future version of this, a much larger version. It's capable of carrying passengers as well as cargo. Okay, so we'll go across the south of the runway on the island. We'll test it out for some low level hovering first, and then manoeuvre. You have to wait for these to spool up. And that can be quite a while. Okay. Nope, doesn't like that. Try and keep it level. So as soon as you affect the roll, that affects the pitch as well. And you have to try and juggle it. Much as you possibly can. So I'm not using autopilot. It's quite sharp on the controls. So low altitude and low airspeed, it's quite sharp, and at high speed and high altitude, it's not quite powerful enough. Okay, turn to face it. So they're messing around like that. Phew. Okay, so it needs a little bit of modification. We need reaction wheels. We need just one reaction wheel really, rather than having two. Because something tells me the two of them are getting confused between each other. The cockpit doesn't have... Yes, it does. Okay. Not too bad though. Yeah, I think I've got plenty of supplies. If it lets me, there we go, auto save as per usual. Oh no, 2 days, we don't need 2 days worth, so that's a little bit of weight we can save. Electric charge is fine, that's 300, gives us 2 hours. What's it, no throttle, we're not getting any charge from it, from any of the engines. We don't need 2 days worth, no, it's actually 3 days worth. Okay, so I'm going to head back into the aircraft hangar. I'm going to modify the angle of these engines. I'm going to try and pitch the forward ones here at the front a few degrees over. We'll keep these ones pointing vertically and see what happens then. We'll try and create some sort of a little bit of lateral movement, a little bit lateral propulsion, a bit more thrust towards the forward angle at least. I'm going to take the reaction wheels out as well and see what happens then. Okay, so head back into the aircraft hangar. Okay, so this is the modified quad. As I said, the forward motors are leant over slightly, a few degrees, and I've also taken out the reaction wheels, which was here and here. And we just got reaction wheel in the actual cockpit itself. According to the rating, it's 10 kilonewtons per metre, so that should be plenty, hopefully. And I've cut down the amount of life support as well. We don't need 2 days or 3 days worth actually. We need 3 hours. Still more than we actually really need, but okay. We've got the aerodynamic slats just here, just to help that stability, because for some reason it was trying to roll over and pull itself back into the ground at full throttle. So hopefully with these 2 motors pitched over slightly, we'll like get some extra sort of aerodynamic force forwards, a bit more stability. Also have to pitch backwards to touch down, but that's not unusual. Not in VTOL aircraft. Okay, that's about it. So we'll head out, we'll test this version. Okay, so we're taking off from the island airfield this time. Just we're testing, not altitude. We know it's going to cut out about 12.5 kilometres. That's not going to change no matter what we do, because that's just the limit for the air intake for the engines. So we're going to be testing some low level flight instead. That's better. So you see it waddle just then. So it's leaning slightly back. Make it a lot more stable. Obviously angling them out that way as well might also improve stability. So nice and stable though. Obviously autopilot isn't much use, so as it's not much use for helicopters. But we do seem to be wandering over quite a lot. It's either towards the right or to the left, which is pretty obvious. Railroad aircraft, as I explained earlier, they do that anywhere. But as a proof of concept for KwuadKopter, that's not too bad. It's going to be perfect for the first version. Also, you're changing these skids for wheels. A little bit safer than skids, just in case you hit the well, as we did just then. Slightly moving it slightly faster than you really want to with skids. Every single time you try to maneuver, it's modifying the opposite direction. As you can see, it's bouncing back basically. So when I pitch down, it's rolling. That's it, because you can't reverse direction, the rotation direction of each engine. You can set reverse thrust, but that's not a good idea. So all the torque is building that way, so it's rolling us over that way, or pushing us over. The only way to solve that is by using helicopter rotors, but the only ones we've got available right now are massive. So I had to choose propeller engines. But for a larger version, I've already mentioned we've got some dedicated duct fans. 2 versions of those, and they are quite large. Yeah, I can see it sort of trying to roll. See what happens when we do that. Yeah, don't crash again, Val. I see it's Valentina flying this time. She's quite accident prone. Oh, she's going to crash again. Alright, alright. Oh dear me. So yeah, it does tend to suffer from aerodynamic stalls quite easily. Which isn't surprising because we've got no wings. I've already mentioned we don't have any translational lift. It is just all dependent on these 4 columns of air from the engines. Yeah, I know, Val, again. She snapped one of the engines off. Not too much damage though. Just one of the engines has come. Okay, so fully recovered, minus 1 engine, which snapped off when she hit the water. No other damage though. So obviously the engine is somewhere over here to recover that manually. But other than that, that was pretty good, not too bad. So I still need to modify it a little bit. Also got nice and stable. We'll try and make a larger version for a future episode. Okay, so no ribbons. It isn't obvious. She's not going to get anything like that. Okay, it's going to be next few episodes actually. We've got a number of prototype aircraft. That's the next version of the SST. That's a passenger, supersonic passenger aircraft. The Interceptor Mark II. And the Corker Kidney Harwich and the V2L aircraft. And the KVX-22. Which has the pivoting engine pods. So when we test that, I'm hoping I've solved the issue I mentioned in this particular episode with the quad, with the servos just breaking off at any more than just a handful of meters per second airspeed. We've got another version of the Mark II Hawk with a new engine as well. So that is coming up in the future handful of the episodes that we've got coming up, as well as a rocket-powered space plane, which will be rather like the X-15 for NASA, which was a suborbital space plane, which was taken up into about 50,000 feet altitude underneath the wing, and then dropped like a bomb, and then it lit its own rocket engines and headed into suborbital flight. We've also got a submarine being constructed as well. But other than that, yeah, it's not quite on this list. I haven't quite finished putting that together, so that's a submarine for fairly close episode as well. However, that is the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to click like. It is appreciated. Also, don't forget we have Facebook, Discord and Twitter. You can find links to all 3 of those platforms on the banner front page of the channel. Obviously, if you want to leave a comment or ask a question, you are more than welcome to do so. But we do have a moderator team. Please remember that. We do have a moderator team that goes through all the comments on the question before they're handed to me. So it can take a while. But I do try to get to everyone eventually. Sometimes some comments or some questions can slip through. So my apologies for that. Alright, once again, thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next episode. In the meantime, as always, take care. And bye-bye.